আরো ক্লোজ দিও ক্যামেরা ক্লোজ দিও আসুন না আমরা আজকে সবাই একবার দাঁড়িয়ে তাদেরকে একবার সম্মান জানাই আমরা একবার স্ট্যান্ডিং ওভেশন দিয়ে যাই On behalf of Bangladeshi people living in Michigan and on behalf of Bangladesh, we are celebrating you, whatever you have, your contribution on 1971. We still remember you. You are in our heart. You are a part of Bangladesh. You are a part of Bangladesh. Thank you. এই মুহূর্তে তাদেরকে ফুলের তোড়া দিয়ে আমাদের বাংলাদেশ অ্যাসোসিয়েশন অফ মিশিগানের সদস্য মোহাম্মদ আজিজ সুমন এবং আরিফ সাকওয়া তাদেরকে ফুল দিয়ে শুভেচ্ছা জানাচ্ছি ধন্যবাদ ধন্যবাদ
সম্মানিত উপস্থিতি এবং সুধীবৃন্দ আসসালামু আলাইকুম Mr. Chairman of this event, honorable guests, honorable freedom fighters, friends of Bangladeshi Americans, and my fellow Bangladeshi Americans. I'm gonna speak in English, especially for our young children and our friends. You have a lot of guests here. I believe they will speak in Bangla, but I'm gonna make my short very short. You saw the movie. I'm gonna summarize for our young children what happened in 1971. My friends, we gather tonight to celebrate the Independence Day of Bangladesh. On 26 March 1971, the independence of Bangladesh was declared and the liberation war started, led by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. The liberation war broke out as Pakistani army launched a military operation in East Pakistan against Bengali civilians, students, intellectuals, and army personnel. In desperation, Bengali military, paramilitary, and civilians formed the Mukti Bahini and used guerrilla warfare tactics to fight against the West Pakistan army. India provided economic, military, and diplomatic support to the Mukti Bahini rebels. The independence was conquered through the 9-month fight against Pakistan army. Sadly, we had to sacrifice about 3 million innocent lives. Finally, victory was achieved on 16 December 1971, which is celebrated as the Victory Day. I pray for the departed soul of the Mukti Bahini that sacrificed their life for the freedom of Bangladesh. At the same time, I thank all the Mukti Bahinis present today for their heroism in 1971. Although the United States supported Pakistan both politically and materially, many United States citizens supported the liberation war. Today, we are honored to have Mr. Thomas Diane and Mrs. Joan Diane among our guests. Mr. Thomas Diane and Mrs. Diane was an active supporter of Bangladesh liberation. You will hear from them. On behalf of the Bangladeshi Americans, I especially thank them for their support. Finally, just celebrating the Independence Day is not enough. We have to ask what we can do for our country. First, we have to be successful in all areas through proper education, training, and knowledge. Second, we need to actively participate in charitable and mainstream politics in this country that we live in, the United States of America. And then finally, and only then, we can help Bangladesh by influencing policies and trades that are favorable to Bangladesh. Thank you very much. Long live the United States of America. Long live Bangladesh.
Assalamu alaikum. Well, it's a very proud moment for me whenever something related to our freedom struggle, and whenever I am present in an event related to our 71 or anything, my heart fills with pride and emotion. And I belong to a very fortunate generation who have seen the birth of a generation. I was a 14-year-old who used to live in Shanghai. I've seen how the people didn't get their political right, was struggling for the political movement. And also I've seen how the Pakistani army wanted to crush them. And we have already seen all those things in the documentary. But in the middle of our freedom struggle, we started getting the support of the world opinion. And there are lots of Americans who helped us in that one. And it is our duty to let our next generation know what a debt we owe to those friends. We need to let them know how Senator McGovern, Senator Ted Kennedy helped us. We have to let them know the story of the journalist, Carl Levin, who spent all of his money to go there and document those freedom struggle. And also we need to know how the American singer Bob Dylan, Ringo Starr, with George Harrison, they arranged the Bangladesh concert to bring the world opinion in our favor. We need to know that how the people they were trying to simulate the distress of the refugees by living in a sweat spy near the White House. We need to know the people who are trying to stop the ship to go to Pakistan with arms. And they really helped us. And we have a friend here. I think we'll hear from him.
ধন্যবাদ টুকু ভাই আপনার মূল্যবান বক্তব্য। আপনারা সবাই আমার সালাম নেবেন। মাননীয় সভাপতি, উপস্থিত সুধীবৃন্দ, আমার দেশের চিরজাগরুক সন্তান, যাদের কারণে আজকে আমরা আমেরিকায় আছি, স্বাধীনতা 41তম দিবস পালন করছি, প্রিয় মুক্তিযোদ্ধারা। আমরা যারা I wish I could speak in English. My young friends, forgive my English. My English is tuta fata. So I prefer to speak in English, although I don't feel very comfortable. I wish I could speak in Bangla. But considering the young people and considering our very distinguished guests to whom we are very grateful, I prefer to speak in English. You know, for those who lived on March 25 in Dhaka, I was in Bangladesh television. I and Dr. Nurul Nabi, he was a student, he also witnessed the whole thing. We cannot describe it. You have seen part of it in the documentary, but you have not seen the Dhaka killing. I'll not describe it because it overwhelms me and I become very emotional, angry and whatnot. What I'd like to point out, this spirit which drove a people being killed and oppressed, then those people again rose and fought and got a free country. Now, this spirit, I want to trace the history of this spirit. This spirit dates back to 15th century, when there was a poet called Chandidas. He wrote that famous sentence. The sentence I'm going to quote, but I want to remind you, when the poet wrote that famous sentence, America was not even discovered, not to talk about their constitution. Europe was almost, they were just coming into the modern age, but the Middle Age was still lingering in Europe. And at that time, we never heard of the East, what's happening there. And Australia was not also discovered. Chandidas wrote in Bangla, Shiloh Manush Bhai, Sabar upore manush sotto tahar upore nai. In English, all is in mankind. Man is the final truth and there is nothing beyond. That's the spirit of Bengali. What is it? One is saying, man is the final truth. You imply absolute human dignity. Before the world drew their constitutions, by incorporating this concept of human dignity, long before the United Nations was born, we the Bengali pronounced it. But our voice, it took about 1,000 years that our voice could be heard. Our voice would have been heard through 1971. And from that day on, our voice is being heard. Now, that voice came back in a much more pronounced, in a much more bombarding way, in a wonderful, manly voice of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman.
We call everywhere called Detroit, and Sayyid Abdul Shahid. I don't know, many of you know probably, he lives in Hamtramck. He passed away about 5-6 years ago. I failed to come to his funeral because I was Florida at the time. I heard that he passed away. So he took 4 vans full of people from Detroit. I wish I know everyone's our name. And participated in demonstration on 29th of March 1971. We had a demonstration in front of the Capitol building, we had a demonstration of White House, the World Bank, and the State Department, and that was the first demonstration we started. Now, aside from that, we didn't have any friend, my fellow Bangladeshis, I'm telling you, we did not have any friend. We did not know how to generate publicity we were lucky. First friend we got, Ted Kennedy. Second friend we got, Frank Church, and Tom Dine and Joanne Dine. Then Senator Saxby from Ohio, he joined. I went many times to John Dingell for support, but he could not give me support. Some reason, he was the chair of Energy Committee, he was very close to Iran, and he has very close relationship with Iran. And Iran has a close relation with Pakistan. So he bluntly told me, because he knew me who I was. He told me that your uncle calling me every week. I cannot do anything. I cannot support it because I will have a problem, political problem, because I am close to Iran. I am Energy Committee chairman, petroleum and all these things were there. However, but these people like Tom Dine, Joanne Dine, I have more story about their house, how they hosted it. So I'm going to short it out for them. I would like to say that Bangladesh government should recognize the people like Abdul Shahid, Muhammad Wazullah in Detroit, Michigan, Abdul Wahab. They were the people backbone of Bangladesh movement in this area. I don't know when you guys came, but they were the people who provided logistic support, financial support. They sent money. So every week I would get call from them that what we need to do, how they can help us. So that's the one thing I need to tell you. What the young lady said here, I have a two proposals, and that's what I thought about two proposals. We are here not just Bangladeshi. We are here Bangladeshi Americans. We should not just think about Bangladesh. We should think about Bangladesh along with think about our community here. We should follow the Jewish community in America. We should follow the Polish community in America. We should follow Italian community in America. We should follow the Irish community in America. I'm grateful for Hilal to bring me here to speak up in front of you. I cannot express enough gratitude that how proud I am to be in front of you, to be here and speak whatever I have. And I hope later on, Dr. Nurunobi and I and Hilal and other organization people get together and form that organization so that we can be part of. I am so proud of Nurunobi because he is the example of our dream. He is a council member, elected council member. I am proud of even Henson Clark. He is a son of a facility. Even though his mother raised him, he is a congressman. For listening to me too much. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
ধন্যবাদ জনাব একেএম ফজল বাড়ি সুদূর ওয়াশিংটন থেকে এসে আপনার মূল্যবান সময় নষ্ট করে আপনার আমাদের সাথে যে অভিজ্ঞতা আপনি শেয়ার করেছেন আর অবশ্যই আমরা ভবিষ্যতে আপনার সাথে কাজ করার জন্য অঙ্গীকারাবদ্ধ এবং তা কয়েকবার আপনার সাথে ফোনে এবং ইমেইলে তা যোগাযোগ হয়েছে। আমরা আছি আপনার সাথে আপনারা যে কজন ভয়েস অফ আমেরিকা বাংলা বিভাগের প্রধান রোকিয়া হায়দারকে। রোকিয়া হায়দার।
সবাইকে অনেক অনেক শুভেচ্ছা। মঞ্চে যারা রয়েছেন বিশেষ অতিথি, প্রধান অতিথি, আজকের এই অনুষ্ঠানের আহ্বায়ক, সভাপতি, আমার সামনে যারা রয়েছেন মিশিগানবাসী, আমার ভাই বোনেরা, আমারই ছেলে মেয়েরা, সবাইকে অনেক অনেক শুভেচ্ছা। আজকে আমাকে এখানে আমন্ত্রণ জানানোর জন্য আমি আপনাদের সবাইকে ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি, বিশেষ করে হেলালকে। In fact, I was here a few months ago and we were talking about how our American friend contributed to the liberation war of Bangladesh. Little did I know at that time that a list was being made, sent to the present government of Bangladesh. After 41 years of independence, Bangladesh government was really seriously thinking about this idea, honoring the friends of Bangladesh, the foreigners in the United States, United Kingdom, Germany, you name it, wherever they were. There were lots of foreigners who supported the Bangladeshi liberation war. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we have amongst us not only our freedom fighters who fought for the land that we are proud to proclaim Bangladesh, and we are here as Bangladeshi Americans, but our American friends are with us today. It is an honor for me, and I'm proud to be a part of a celebration while the Bangladesh government is honoring many of the foreigners today. Here, the people of Michigan honoring the friends of Bangladesh, the Americans, who literally fought alongside of the Bangladeshi people, and then through their effort in foreign lands, we realized our dreams, that is Bangladesh. By profession, I'm a broadcast journalist. You hear me talk about a lot of things. Many of you must have heard me. So today I'm here to listen, not to talk. And thank you again. I would listen, you listen, and be a part of another history, honoring our foreign friends, the friends of Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thank you, Rukia Haidar. Shudhi Mandali.
Another history that she will be part of our life onwards today. Duan Dayan.
Thank you all so much. This was an honor to be a part of such an important, one of the most important things that I've ever done was just to participate in this experience. Tom and I would be proud to be your parents. And I just thought I would share a few vignettes about how the Bangladesh experience came into our lives. Now, I originally, and to affirm our common humanity and to extend democracy, which I do believe is the essential desire of every human being. And I came out of the West Coast state of Oregon from a pioneer family, from parents who cared about being involved in public service, in politics, in international affairs, loved music. So after I graduated from college, I heeded President Kennedy's call, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Came to work at the Peace Corps, met, and I headed up recruiting in the South and was the deputy director of the recruiting operation, which meant that I became aware of how to communicate and build momentum and enthusiasm. I met and married my husband. We had a whirlwind courtship and and he had a graduate degree in South Asian Studies and had been a Peace Corps volunteer in the Philippines. We found ourselves then very shortly in India for 2 years, where I was not permitted to work, but did singing did involve myself in helping the ambassador's wife. So we came back. So I came to love Bengali music, Bengali culture in terms of the dance, the food. It was the best as far as I was concerned, all over South Asia. So we arrived back in Washington, D.C., and our first baby was 4 months old at the time that Tom brought home into the house these brilliant brain trust of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman Sobhan, A.M.A. Buheith, people like Razak Khan and Fazlul Bari came into our house, and I began, because I was nursing a new baby around the clock, I was not particularly aware of what was going on in the wider world until that moment. But as they described, I mean, having known poverty in those areas of the world, to hear that the Pakistani army was taking napalm and putting it into grass huts. I mean, if you wanted to kill people, all you needed to do was disrupt the rice supply for a day or two, and they probably were on the edge. But this kind of brutality was so shocking and outrageous. And the fact that American bullets were being used to kill people because the charitable organizations such as CARE had their trucks driving around, but the army commandeered them and put machine guns into them, so people thought that they were a neutral truck, but it wasn't. So, anyway, couldn't help but start asking, what could we do? And Tom had been visited by Bucky Greeno, David Nayland, and all 20 of the American doctors who were serving in the Cholera Research Lab in Dhaka had come to visit him one at a time, and Bengalis were beginning to come to visit him because he was one of the few aides on Capitol Hill who had a clue about what was going on in foreign affairs and in South Asia. So at that point, he told them, he said, you guys have got to organize a lobby. And so the Bangladesh Information Office was born by Bucky Greeno and David Nayland. I chose to get babysitting for my child and volunteered 3 days a week for 4 or 5 hours. So we basically started organizing with David Weisbrod was full-time, Kaiser Zaman was full-time, and these 2 young bachelors, we got their apartment shaped up and started card file. Tom really honed his skills, which later, when he headed up the pro-Israel lobby for 13 years, really evolved them on behalf of Bangladesh. Because there were committee heads that we needed to get the ear of, and we needed to have them come and vote to stop American arms being used for this disgrace, for this horrendous shame. And so, sorry, he started suggesting that we should find who was the college roommate of that senator, who knew him, or Bengalis should write, or Americans should write letters to the editors of the hometown papers, mail those editorials into the congressional offices. And he always felt that democracy works best when all sides are represented. And so lobbies have a place of honor if you have both sides represented. And anyway, we just set about trying to make sure that there was a groundswell of public opinion that it could be sustained and the momentum kept carrying. And I was kind of stunned. One time we went to a friend's house for Sunday lunch, and some other guest was a journalist with the Washington Post, and everybody was talking and playing tennis. And by the end of this afternoon, it was purely social and a new contact. All of a sudden, the next morning, there was a front page article in the Washington Post about the Bangladesh problem and dilemmas. And so every day we kept trying to keep this going. And Bengalis were more than welcome in our home. And so, but within good taste, I think, and ethics. Anyway, so we tried to get letter writing going, phone calls going, and to use the Hill to counter Nixon and Kissinger, who were siding with Pakistan in their approaches to China as well. So Tom's brother did a poster for the, Jim Dine, the artist, did a poster for the benefit for Bangladesh that took place at Madison Square Garden with Ravi Shankar and George Harrison. I mean, this was a big deal. This was 60s and 70s culture. I mean, I do think it speaks to the basic decency of Americans and their compassion that as soon as they heard about it, and that was our challenge, was just to publicize and make American opinion felt and expressed through their elected representatives. So they did what was needed. And I also accompanied Tom and Senator Church and Mrs. Church and the Saxbys to the refugee camps. I mean, pretty shocking to see women trying to nurse babies but that their milk had dried up because of the shocks, of the horrors of what they had gone through, the scabies. I mean, the human suffering was just overwhelming. Gradually, I was cooking meals. I was happy to do this. Tom and Mike Gertner, the aide to Senator Saxby, together in our living room, sitting there just honing the words. I'm sorry? Thank you. Just honing the language of a bill to get the American foreign this part of history, and there's so many people who contributed pieces of the puzzle. It would never have happened if Bengalis hadn't been as joyous, and it was a joyous experience within the desperation of the times. And I can thank you for the opportunity of one of the best experiences of my life, and I wish you well. I am sure with the expressions of Bengali Bangladeshi people that your nation will thrive. So thank you for your contributions to America, and we wish you well. Joy Bangla.
Thank you, Juan Diane. I am speechless, and now today we can say you have a family in Michigan right now. You are the member of Bangladeshi community, and in near future, whatever is going to be here in Michigan, that on a Sunday morning while Juan fixed us brunch. I hope today find them both in a good health. I also remember my pre-war trip to India with Senator Saxby and Church and their wives, Tom and Joan, and my introduction to the Indian food. Is Tom smiling? All right. Finally, I remember the difficulties of the enforcement of the arms embargo amendment and how we generated bipartisan support of it, which led to the establishment of your country. Again, I am very sorry for being unable to attend the celebration, and I am deeply honored that you remember my small contribution to the Bengali people. I wish you and your country to the best of luck in the future. Michael Gardner, Gardner & Gardner, Attorney at Law, 175 South Street, Columbus, Ohio. Thank you, Mr. Gardner, to send us this information. Now I'd like to call Mr. Tom Diane to give his speech, and we can learn more things from him, what he did. And he is a part of our family. We did not have the time to remember them 41 years ago. We did now, and this is happened today in Michigan, and it will be rememberable, and it will be written on the history that we did started from Michigan, and it will continue on. Thank you very much.
This is for you. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Mohammed, and thank everyone here with the Bangladesh Association of Michigan. My personal appreciations for this event, for including the star of the show, Mrs. Dime. The rest of us are just support system. Exactly. I want to particularly mention Muhammad Haq. He is the most persistent man on earth. And he can get anybody here against their will, for their will, by cheek, by jowl, by anything. And I want to recognize Fazlul Bari. That was a great speech, but also for being on the front lines with us in 1971 in Washington, D.C. So like my wife, I'm honored to be invited to this event in celebration of the cause of Bangladesh's statehood. As I look out at all of you, I can only think of comparing and contrasting what it was like in 1971. At the maximum here tonight, there were about 225 people that I was able to count. We couldn't get together 20 people in 1971, and it's so good and so heartening to see all of you here. Here as Bangladeshis living in the United States, as American citizens, and as people who care about community and in favor of liberating Bangladesh back then. So my hat and my heart are off to. Tonight is an opportunity for me to share some pertinent memories about 1971. An inside look at such a historic moment. I also want to offer a lesson or two. Lawyers or political scientists at the University of Michigan or elsewhere would call that a case study. In our system of government here in the United States, policy is guided by politics, and politics is guided by policy. And the two of them must come together. And that is what, in looking back in 1971, that is what we did. And it is the essence of trying to shape and reshape our own government and our own way of doing things. I don't want to be pedantic about the year 1971, but most of Washington was shocked, was appalled. It's a few of us who cared about this unknown place called East Pakistan, then called Bangladesh. I can't tell you what a job it was to educate people just about that part of the Indian subcontinent which the British had divided and conquered, as mentioned earlier. So we were quantitatively very strong, very weak, but we were qualitatively, I think, very good, and we did significant things. But I was educating my senator. That was my job. And he was the one who had to vote in committee, on the floor. So I had to do the best job I could to convince him to take action. So the first thing I did was to prepare a big pile of articles that were appearing in the American press, in the British press, in the Indian press, about the crisis. That it was real, it wasn't made up, that the images that began to come being shown on television were real, and that the United States was intimately involved with Rawalpindi in creating this cruel reality. And I can't remember the exact date, maybe you do. I think it was March 30, 1971. Senator Frank Church went to the floor of the Senate and put all those articles into the congressional record. And afterwards, A.M.A. Muhith said he opened up the congressional record at the Pakistan embassy, and there they were, 56 pages of the American public's taxpayers' money, reprinting all these materials for senators to use and to understand the crisis. And he said he closed his door and began to cry. And I'm starting to cry right now, to think that something I was doing touched other people in this way. So, but now let me try the case study approach. Certain key elements are always in a legislative strategy. And for those of you who will never be in the legislature at the local level, the state level, or at the federal level, you still want to understand it. And to the younger people that are here, may you be an elected official in some fashion in our federalist government. But the first thing you need, and this is why I spent so much time on educating, you need legislators who care. Legislators who are upset or pleased by something, and that want to pass this on in terms of law. And when something becomes law in our country, it becomes policy. But the way to make it law is through politics. So the Senate Foreign Relations Committee had to be worked on. The House Foreign Affairs Committee had to be worked on. The two appropriations committees had to be worked on. The Senate leadership had to be worked with. The House leadership had to be worked with. And we had to make them all friends of what we were trying to do, which was to pass legislation against arms to Pakistan, and also to support from Capitol Hill the liberation of Bangladesh. Secondly, you need citizen lobbyists. At the time, as I mentioned earlier, there was not a Bangladeshi American community to find and to activate and encourage them to become visible. So we had to create our own community of pro-Bangladeshis, friends of Bangladesh, people angry at Pakistan, people angry at Nixon and Kissinger for the tilt toward Pakistan. Third, you need experts. We had to go out and find experts who understood British colonial history. How did there come an entity called East Pakistan? What was Bangladesh all about? And how did Bangladesh differ from West Bengal? So we collected the renegades from the Pakistani embassy, and they've been named over and over tonight. We collected old India hands, like myself. I first met Jerry Tinker in India when he was a graduate student. Townsend Swayze, who had once worked at the American Embassy for USAID in New Delhi, and now is working for USAID in Washington. Joan has mentioned the doctors from the Cholera Research Laboratory. They were witnesses, and we could use them as experts to convince legislators. This became a peace issue, so church groups. We had to organize and channel energy, information, expertise through the Bangladesh Information Office. And I call that the pincer movement. You go to legislators in their offices, and when they go back home, they meet with people like yourselves. If you had been here in 1971, and you would have said this exact same thing to them here as was being said to them in Washington, D.C. Fourth is the media. It was the media who broke the story. It was the media who showed the violence and the inhumanity of man to man. The editorials, the television commentaries. Some of you will remember an ABC commentator named Ted Koppel. Ted Koppel came into my office and Senator Church's office, introduced himself, and he said, I just got off an airplane from the subcontinent. The Pakistanis have stolen all my clothes, suitcase, toiletries, notes, and I have nothing, but I'm here to tell you what I've witnessed in East Pakistan and West Bengal in terms of the refugees. And he, of course, went on to bigger and better fame, and he could afford a lot of suitcases later in life. And big houses, right? So the television coverage, the editorials, the television commentators, the television coverage, the Bangladesh Information Office lobby, putting on events, theatricals to be honest, in Lafayette Square, right across from the White House, including a young Mrs. Dine holding on to her 4, 5, 6, 7-month baby, being photographed in both the Washington Post and the Washington Star Times, and that got attention. Also, when you get involved in a foreign policy issue, it's just not legislators and citizen lobbyists and experts and media. You've got to win the argument between American idealists and American realists. Nixon and Kissinger had something else in mind. They didn't care what was happening in Bangladesh. They cared about the opening to China. The rest of us cared about our values. And we couldn't allow, as Joan said, American bullets killing people for no good reason. And finally, when you are involved in a legislative struggle, you count on leaks from inside the executive branch. And we had plenty of them. We had plenty of them. In fact, that's how Jack Anderson, the national columnist, got a hold of Kissinger's tilt toward Pakistan. But the piece de resistance was the actual Saxby Church amendment calling calling for the cutoff of American arms to Pakistan. We had to ensure that Senator Church's foreign affairs expertise gained in credibility by going to India and to the refugee camps. Senator Saxby was a judicial man. He later became President Ford's Attorney General. He had no idea about India or Pakistan or Bangladesh, but we had to give him first-hand education, which Mike Gertner recognizes in his letter. We had to gather on-the-spot information. We went to the refugee camps. We met with Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, who I had met her previously when I worked at the American Embassy, and she hadn't changed a bit. She gave us nothing. She was sort of vacant in terms of discourse. And on the last day of our congressional delegation, Pakistani planes attacked India. The good news was they didn't have strong enough planes to get to the Bombay airport where we were sitting to leave to come home. But the legislative fight left a mark. It left a mark on Nixon and Kissinger, because they eventually lost, even though they opposed us the whole way. Senator Church offered another amendment several months later. It did not become law, but it was an attempt at American idealism to make the whole subcontinent free of U.S. military weapons and materiels. And on a personal note, what the Joy Bangla effort meant to me, it was a labor of love, and I would do it again, but I don't want to do it again because I never want to see that kind of inhumanity again. It certainly refined my skills at organizing lobbies, and it led to a career, as Joan has indicated, organizing the pro-Israel community in the United States to what it is today. So I thank all of you for coming here tonight and listening. I wish you had been assembled in such numbers in 1971, but you can play a role now, and we've heard from several people tonight, Mr. Kareem and Mr. Bari, and the young lady from the University of Michigan, for sure. Be politically active. It's your self-interest that's at stake. Be involved in policy fights, and you get involved in policy fights when you are involved in the political arena. Become office holders and work for a strong and close U.S.-Bangladesh relationship. And I thank all of you very, very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tom Dan. To our chief guest speech, we like to award those people which we call the সংবর্ধনা আমরা কিছু প্লাগ বানাইছি প্লাগগুলো তুলে দেওয়ার লাগে আমি যারা নামটা হম I like to call up on stage Mr. Rajaul Karim. Please come to the stage to give this honorable award to Mr. Thomas Dyer, Mr. Rajaul Karim, ex-Bangladesh Association of Michigan Officers. Mr. Tom Dyer, for your contribution towards Bangladesh Independence Award 1971, presented by Bangladesh Association of Michigan.
Side থেকে তোলেন ছবি সাইড থেকে সাইড থেকে তোলেন ছবি
ওনার উঠানো যায় না সাইড থেকে উনি তো ওইটার পিছনে
Now I like to call the ex-secretary of Bangladesh Association of Michigan, Mr. Azad Khan, to hand over this to Mrs. Joan Dine for your contribution towards Bangladesh Independence War 1971, presented by Bangladesh Association of Michigan, 25th March 2012. Mrs. Joan Dine.
Hold on a second, please. Hold on a second. Thank you.
এখন আমি জনাব A.K.M. ফজলুল বারী সাহেবকে তার 1971 সালের অবদানের স্বীকৃতি স্বরূপ বাংলাদেশ অ্যাসোসিয়েশন অফ মিশিগানের পক্ষ থেকে ক্রেস্টটি তুলে দেওয়ার জন্য অনুরোধ জানাচ্ছি বাংলাদেশ অ্যাসোসিয়েশনের সাবেক সভাপতি জনাব আব্দুল ওয়াহিদকে। জনাব আব্দুল ওয়াহিদ। বাংলাদেশ বেতার এবং স্বাধীনতায় বিশেষ অবদান রাখার জন্য এবার জনাব বেলাল বেগের হাতে ক্রেস্টটি তুলে দেওয়ার জন্য আমি অনুরোধ জানাচ্ছি আমাদের বাংলাদেশ অ্যাসোসিয়েশন অফ মিশিগানের সাবেক সাধারণ সম্পাদক মোহাম্মদ শাহাবুদ্দিনকে। মোহাম্মদ শাহাবুদ্দিন।
একটু থাকেন বেলাল ভাই। থ্যাংক ইউ।
আচ্ছা,
আমার এই হেলাল ভাই যে ভুলটা করেছেন, এই ভুলটা আমার জন্য প্রায় ঘটে এবং আমার খুব ভালো লাগে, আবার খারাপও লাগে। ভুলটা হচ্ছে এই যে আমার নাম হচ্ছে বেলাল বেগ, ওই মোহাম্মদী বেগের কেউ না, কিন্তু আমার নাম বেলাল বেগ। আর ওই মহান লোকটা যে 71 সনে স্বাধীন বাংলা বেতার কেন্দ্রটা যদি চালু না করতেন, হয়তো বা আমাদের মুক্তিযুদ্ধই হতো না। দেশবাসী জানতোই না যে দেশে একটা এরকম হয়েছে। সেই বেলাল মোহাম্মদ যিনি এটা করেছিলেন, তার সঙ্গে প্রায় আমার লোকে গুলিয়ে ফেলে। ওই বেলাল মোহাম্মদ, উনি আছেন বেলাল মোহাম্মদ।
ধন্যবাদ জনাব বেলাল বেগ ভাই। আপনার আমি আসলে সময় কম, আমি এই স্বাধীন বাংলা বেতারের উপরে আমাদের উইকিপিডিয়া থেকে আমি প্রিন্ট আউট নিয়ে এসেছিলাম পড়ার জন্য, কিন্তু আমি অ্যাড্রেসটা দিয়ে দিচ্ছি আপনারা যারা জানতে চান। এটা হলো bn.wikipedia.org। এটাতে গেলে আপনারা এই বাংলাদেশের সম্পূর্ণ ইতিহাস একেবারে মধ্যস্থভাবে যারা যেটা বলবেন, কোনো পার্সিয়াল না, ইন্ডিপেন্ডেন্টলি লেখা হয়েছে, আপনারা সেখান থেকে জানতে পারবেন। যেটা বেলাল ভাই বলছিল যে স্বাধীন বাংলা বেতার কেন্দ্র, সেই স্বাধীন বাংলা বেতার কেন্দ্রে বেলাল মোহাম্মদের নাম 4 নম্বরে আছে। আসলে ঠিক এই শামসুল হুদা চৌধুরী, আশফাকুর রহমান খান, মেসবাউদ্দিন আহমদ, বেলাল মোহাম্মদ, T.H. শিকদার, তাহের সুলতান, মুস্তফা আনোয়ার, আবদুল্লাহ ফারুক, মাহমুদ ফারুক, আশরাফুল আলম, আলী জাকের, নজরুল ইসলাম অনু, কাজী হাবিবুদ্দিন আহমদ, শহীদুল ইসলাম, আলী রেজা চৌধুরী, মঞ্জুরুল কাদের, আবু ইউনুস, মোতাহের হোসেন, মোহাম্মদ মহসিন রেজা, A.K. শামসুদ্দিন, সমর দাস, সৈয়দ হাসান ইমাম, রনেশ কুশারি, সাদেকিন, আব্দুল তুহাব খান, মুস্তাফিজুর রহমান, নাসিম চৌধুরী, ফয়েজ আহমদ, বদরুল হাসান, সাইফুর রহমান, মনতুষ দে, রঙ্গলাল দেব চৌধুরী, সৈয়দ আবু শাকুর, রাশেদুল হোসেন, আমিনুর রহমান, মোমেনুল হক চৌধুরী, প্রণব দে, রেজাউল করিম চৌধুরী, M. আশরাফুজ্জামান এবং হাবিবুল্লাহ চৌধুরীর সমন্বয়ে সেদিন স্বাধীন বাংলা বেতার কেন্দ্র, প্রথমে ছিল স্বাধীন বাংলা বিপ্লবী বেতার কেন্দ্র এবং পরবর্তীতে সেটা এই তথ্য অনুযায়ী মেজর জিয়াউর রহমানের অনুরোধে বিপ্লবী শব্দটা বাদ দিয়ে সেটা করা হয়েছিল স্বাধীন বাংলা বেতার কেন্দ্র। আমরা এই সমস্ত ব্যক্তিবর্গের কাছে কৃতজ্ঞ। এবার আমাদের প্রধান অতিথি, যার বিশেষণ দিয়ে কোনো লাভ নেই, তাকে আমরা ছোটো এই উপহারটুকু দিয়ে আমরা জাস্ট তার যে কর্মের স্বীকৃতি দিচ্ছি, কিন্তু এটাই তার প্রাপ্য নয়, আর অনেক কিছু প্রাপ্য। স্বাধীনতার যুদ্ধ থেকে শুরু করে এই যুক্তরাষ্ট্রে এখন মূলধারার রাজনীতির সাথে তিনি অঙ্গাঙ্গিভাবে জড়িত আছেন। ঘাতক দালাল নির্মূল কমিটির সাথে আমরা 1991 সাল থেকে জাহানারা ইমামের নেতৃত্বে আমরা একসাথে কাজ করেছি নিউ ইয়র্কে। নবী ভাই আমার আহ্বায়ক ছিলেন, আমি কোঅর্ডিনেটর ছিলাম সেই কমিটির, আমরা সেই থেকে কাজ করে এসেছি। ওনার অবদানের স্বীকৃতি দিতে হলে অনেক কিছু দেওয়ার দরকার। আমরা সারসংক্ষেপে এইটুকু ওনার হাতে তুলে দিতে চাই। আজকের এই রেস্টটুকু তুলে দেওয়ার জন্য আমি অনুরোধ জানাচ্ছি বাংলাদেশ অ্যাসোসিয়েশনের সাধারণ সম্পাদক জনাব আবু আহমদ মুসাকে এই উপহারটি তোলার জন্য অনুরোধ জানাচ্ছি।
Ready? Thank you.
আরেক ব্যক্তিত্ব, আমি কখন থেকে সেই আওয়াজ শুনছি জানি না, এই রোকিয়া হায়দার, সরকার কবির উদ্দিন, কাফি খান, এগুলা আমাদের আসলে আজ মনেও পড়ে না কবে এই নাম শোনা আমাদের শুরু। আমরা তখন পুরোপুরি হুঁশেও ছিলাম না যখন থেকে, সেই থেকে শুনতেই আছি, আজও শুনে যাচ্ছি। এবং তাদের যে কৃতিত্ব, তাদেরকে আমরা মূল্যায়িত কিভাবে করব? আমাদের সেই ক্ষমতা বা আমাদের সেই পারদর্শিকতা নাই, তবুও আমাদের মনের মণিকোটায় সঞ্চিত যেটুকু আছে তাই উজাড় করে দিয়ে আমরা আপনাদের সুহাগ জানাচ্ছি, আপনাদের স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি, আপনাদের কি বলবো, আপনাদের কৃতিত্বের প্রতি আমরা কৃতজ্ঞতা জানাচ্ছি। রোকিয়া হায়দারকে উপস্থিত তোলার জন্য আমি জানাচ্ছি আমাদের বাংলাদেশ মিশিগানের সদস্য মোহাম্মদ আজিজ সুমনকে এই উপহারটি তুলে দেওয়ার জন্য।
Okay, apa একটু এক সেকেন্ড রোকে আপা থ্যাংক ইউ।
To be the last speaker, there is advantage and disadvantage. Advantage is that whatever I wanted to say already spoken by other people. And disadvantage is that you are not in a mood to listen more speeches. And I stand in between you and the culture program. So by realizing that, I will try to make my speech very short. Mr. Chairman, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and assalamu alaikum. I feel humble and honored by standing here and to be a part of this historic event that Michigan Bangladesh Association is recognizing our American friends, 3 American friends, Mr. and Mrs. Dine, and also our own Fazle Bari for their outstanding contribution during 1971. I am the witness how that their service was so important in our liberation war. We have been, especially my group, we are fighting within the country. We are surrounded by Pakistani forces. We are desperate in search of good news. We are desperate in search of help. And when we used to get this information that American civil society, American public, their Senate, Congress, print and electronic media were supporting our cause, our fighting, while Nixon and Kissinger opposed Bangladesh Liberation War, they sided with Yahya Khan. So this event is personally also very important to me, that I am participating in the process to recognize those friends of Bangladesh during our difficult time. So I thank you, 3 of you, from my bottom of my heart. I would like to discuss a little bit why did I participate in the Liberation War? Why did I become the freedom fighters? Of course, I have written a book Bullets of 71, a freedom fighter story. Ayub Khan was forced to resign. Bangabandhu was released. We bestowed on Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman as Bangabandhu, friend of Bangladesh, friend of Bengal. And then Ayub Khan handed over power to another general, Yahya Khan. And he was also forced to give election. But he anticipated that no political power will win the election, will get absolute majority, especially Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. But his intelligence report were wrong. Bangabandhu's Awami League own absolute majority in East Pakistan and national parliament. And rest of the history, you know, when Yahya and Bhutto conspired to undo the democratic will of Bangladeshi people. They postponed the parliament, then Bangabandhu declared non-cooperation movement. I was again lucky as an activist of this non-cooperation movement. Then when the fateful night of 25th March came, before that we were ready. After the speech of Bangabandhu on 7th March, Ebare Sangram, Sadinata Sangram, Ebare Sangram, Mukti Sangram, struggle for this time is for independence. We the political activists knew that what is going to happen. Bangladesh will get independence only through liberation war. Pakistan will not let this go unchallenged. So we are ready to fight, ready to take in arms and fight the Pakistani forces. So on the fateful night of 25th March, when we are told in the evening that negotiation between Bangabandhu and Sheikh Mujibur Rahman had broken down, Yahya Khan leaving the airport to the way to West Pakistan, Pakistani army is coming onto the cities, will attack university and other places. Our group were asked to make a barricade in front of the Shahbag Hotel, now Bangabandhu Medical College, I guess. So while we have been building barricade in front of Shahbag Hotel on 25th March, it was 11:15. We saw a convoy of Pakistani army was proceeding towards us. They saw us that we are making barricade to block their advance. They fired on us. So arguably, I faced the first bullet of Bangladesh genocide, Pakistani genocide. I was just lucky that I was on the sidewalk taking a little bit of rest after continuous 2 hours. That's what I survived. But on the spot, several of our colleagues, they were killed and wounded. So that's how Bangladesh genocide started on 25th March night. And it continued 9 months. After 9 months, we forced Pakistani to surrender, but our victory was very costly. 3 million people were killed, 200,000 women were raped, 10 million people were forced to take shelter in a refugee camp in India, and 20 million people were forced to become refugees within their own country, within Bangladesh. So these are crimes against humanity committed by Pakistani army and their collaborators, Bengali collaborators, member of Jamaat-e-Islami, Al-Badr, Al-Shams. These are crimes against humanity. But this genocide is a forgotten genocide. West has forgotten. This genocide is least researched, least documented. And that's why I have written my book. I have been visiting cities after cities for last 1 year. I have visited more than 10 universities, giving lectures to the students. That genocide had happened in Bangladesh, and it was perpetrated by Pakistani army and their collaborators. And when, even after 41 years, Bangladesh government is starting the process of putting Bangladeshi war criminals on trial, there are a lot of conspiracies going on to stop this trial. These supporters of war criminals, Bangladeshi war criminals, they are spending millions of dollars. They are misleading the lawmakers, opinion makers. They are misleading the journalists. They have raised the question, this is political revenge. This trial is nothing but political revenge and it is not following the international standard. My question to those people who are raising this issue. When they did this crime against humanity, killed 3 million people, raped more than 200 our sisters and mothers, did they follow international standard? Did they follow the criminal code? No. So Bangladesh government putting these war criminals on trial, and we will do this according to our law, and it will be fair and free because these criminals, they have the lawyers to defend themselves. If they are not happy with the verdict of the court, they have the rights to go to the higher authority, higher court. In the past, no war criminals trial had that kind of opportunity. So my friends, this is the time to make awareness among our young generation that what a costly price Bangladeshi people had paid in terms of suffering, in terms of blood to gain the independence of Bangladesh. You should feel proud of this independence struggle. You should proud those brothers and sisters, our freedom fighters. You should proud our leaders, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who spent 30 years of his prime life in jail. He went to death squad, but he did not compromise. So these are the glorious history of Bangladeshi people. As Belal Bhai mentioned other aspects, we are a proud nation. We have a very rich culture and history. So we should teach our children about our history. We should teach our friends, American friends, about our history, about our struggle, about the war crimes process. I just want to mention one more point about the conspiracy against these war criminal trials. The Pakistani ISI, they are the friends of our war criminals. They are also spending millions of dollars. They are using their network. And they have hired one lady who has written a book, this Sharmila Bose, that in Bangladesh, women were not raped, people were not killed, only few people were killed. And how smart these Pakistani forces and these friends of war criminals of Bangladesh, that they have selected a Bengali lady, they have selected a Hindu, and she happens to be the relatives of our hero Chandra Bose. She is telling that Yahya Khan was a kind general. Yahya Khan was a kind general. This Sharmila Bose has written in her book. We, the freedom fighters, we, the activists, were violent. I was an activist. I was in the ground. We are not violent. Pakistani forces before 25th March, during liberation movement, used violence against us. Hundreds of people were killed. We have what we have, only bamboo stick. We are not violent. But this lady has portrayed Yahya Khan as a doyalu, as a kind ruler. And she interviewed few Pakistani generals and testifying, Sharmila Bose testifying that war crime did not happen in Bangladesh. And their connection is that this little known young lady wrote a book. Woodrow Wilson Center sponsored the publication ceremony of this book, even the publication of the book. I contacted them that I am a freedom fighter, I have written a book, I want to face Sharmila Bose, and I have already known that he has written lies, bunch of lies. Woodrow Wilson did not allow me to speak. I was given only 1 minute. When Sharmila Bose presented her book, concluded that Yahya Khan was a very kind general, Belusi soldiers were very kind, no genocide happened in Bangladesh, women were not raped, and his source of information. She interviewed few Pakistani generals. I had no time to protest, only just 1 minute I said, whatever you have written is lies, far from the truth.